Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. It's been a while. But it's a new season of Canucks Convo. I always say this is a new season. This is the mark of the new season. Preseason games haven't started, but players are starting to arrive in town. We're going to be out at UBC this week, probably watching some players return and hit the ice as they get ready. The Jake Milford is early this year, as we've talked about earlier this summer. That's happening next Monday. So I think this is the official start of the new Canucks Convo season. And also here with me is Harman Dial, who again missed all of August. We don't hold that against you, Harm. We don't, even though it sounds like we might. We don't. We got a good chance to recharge. You were at my wedding. I'm ready to go for this new season of Canucks Convo. It's gonna be good.
I'm so jacked up. Normally when I take time off in previous summers, it's never like a clustered 4 or 5 weeks at once. Normally it might be like a 2 weeks off, and let's say May if the Canucks have been eliminated early and or haven't made the playoffs. And then let's say 3 weeks in August, or it might be split where it's sometime off in July, sometime off in August. I haven't had like 4 or 5 weeks off at one time. And I'm not going to lie. Last week of August, I was really getting the itch and getting restless to get back to hockey. I'm so excited to be back on the pod. So excited that training camp's right around the corner. And honestly, anytime Labor Day ends, to me, that's the unofficial end of summer.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm totally, and Jacob, you can weigh in on this too. September 1st is the first day of the fall. Like I'm already looking at what pumpkins I want and my fall decor in the house. I'm absolutely agree with you there. That summer's over. August 31st, it's over.
For me, it's Labor Day. So in this case, Labor Day was early and it was on September 1st. So yeah, I'll agree with it this year. But sometimes you get that like September 6th Labor Day where it's like, okay, you get that extra week of summer, it feels like.
I actually agree with you, but why did I not know Labor? I thought Labor Day was always the first.
No, it's the first.
There's
Monday.
no way you've been alive for 25 years and have not noticed that
it's
Labor
the first
Day
Monday. So if September 1st lands on a Wednesday or Tuesday or a Wednesday, you get that extra week before Labor Day.
No. Okay. No, I knew this. Okay, I knew this. It just, if you gun to my head, if you just asked me about it like 2 minutes ago, I would have said no. It's on September 1st every year. It had a little, what do they call that? Mandela effect. That's it. Yeah, nailed it. Another one nailed. This show is brought to you by Bet365, and back for another season, the BC Mental Health Foundation as our Super Chat charity partner. You want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show, hit us with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. So for those of you on the YouTube chat, hit us with a Super Chat. We'll get your comment on the show. I got a lot I want to get to.
Hold on. First, we just got to, I know it was brought up, but we just do want to congratulate you, Quads. And, you are now a newly married man. And there's the ring. And we've got a photo there from the wedding. It was a great time. Thank you for having us. And the chat, a bunch of people in the chat already have reached out and congratulate you. So I just wanted to take a moment here at the beginning of the show and formally acknowledge it here on Canucks Conversation.
Thank you. Big Hog Hockey said, I snuck into the wedding, by the way. God, that free food was good. There was zero chance anyone snuck into the wedding because I aim to have a small wedding and I successfully, you guys would call that a small wedding, right?
Yeah,
like I literally got to talk to everybody that was at the wedding, like face to face. It was great.
And honestly, you guys knocked it out of the park in terms of the whole
fantastic
setup, the venue, the food, the catering. Everybody there was so lovely. Also wild, by the way, that because you had ordered in barbecue, which was phenomenal, by the way. But I was looking at the food options going, boy, this is the wrong day to be a vegetarian. And then you and I were talking at the wedding. Not a single guest at the wedding was vegetarian, apparently.
Yeah, no.
That's crazy to me.
What do you mean? Dude, you understand, these people that came to the wedding are either my family or friends, right? I'm not friends with any vegetarians. Literally, I'm not. Like, I'm not even making a joke. I don't think I'm friends with a single vegetarian.
But it's just the thought of like 80 people in a group and not one being vegetarian is pretty mind-boggling.
Well, hang on a sec, because about 40 of those people were Italian, right? There's no Italian vegetarians. No, they don't exist. They're extinct. They're extinct. They don't exist. And then after that, it was all my buddies, and none of you guys are are vegetarians. And Jacob's also Italian. So Jacob's not a vegetarian either. And he wouldn't marry one either. Yeah, I'm right about that. First,
my wife,
is your wife a vegetarian?
No, her one of her favorite meals is like a steak, and a big steak. She'll handle.
Crush a steak.
Yeah, she'll handle it. No problem.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the brisket. Okay. Anyways, we'll move past the wedding. Yes. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Appreciate the love in the chat. Okay. I wanted to get to a few things. Jeff Patterson's going to join us in a matter of moments. Like I said, new season. J-Pat's going to join us every week, typically on Tuesdays during the season. So we thought we'd kick it off with Jeff joining the show. So we're going to do that in a matter of moments. Our poll question today is about Filip Chytil. He's been a topic all summer long, but we're getting into crunch time, Harm. Like, we're getting to the end of the offseason. At least in my mind, there's still some interesting names out there. The one I'm going to talk about is Jack Roslovic. The reason I bring this up before J-Pat is because I'm going to ask J-Pat for what feels like the 5th, maybe 6th time this summer, and he's been on the show 5 or 6 times this summer, what he thinks about the Canucks center depth and how Jack Roslovic could play into it all. I'm going to ask J-Pat about that, but I keep bringing it up. I keep bringing it up that Jack Roslovic seems like the name out there. Again, Woodley was on the show with me last month, and we were talking about Roslovic, and what Woodley said is, okay, and he brought up a good point. It was a good point. Okay, maybe Roslovic is plan B, and maybe a Marco Rossi or a Mason McTavish or one of the other names out there on the trade market is plan A, and the Canucks are going to try to get plan A, and if they can't, they'll move to plan B, as you typically do with plan A and plan B, and go to Jack Roslovic. It's September 2nd, Harm. Rossi has signed a contract. That happened while we were away. Marco Rossi is now signed with the Minnesota Wild. Now, that doesn't mean he can't be traded, but in my mind, that adds some leverage to the Wild to say, we'll just keep the guy. Because before, when they said that, you could maybe call a game of chicken to some extent, where you say, if you're going to keep him, why haven't you signed him? You've talked about how he's not a playoff performer. You don't, all this stuff that's been said about Marco Rossi and how he fits with the Minnesota Wild and the culture that they're trying to build there. You had that if you were the Canucks, but now he's signed, and not to just make the conversation about Rossi. I'm just making the point that it is now September 2nd. When do you move to plan B, if that is the case, that Roslovic is plan B?
Well, that's what I was going to ask is, do you think Roslovic is still plan B? Because there is also another option, which is you keep the cap space, start the year with a healthy Chytil, see what you have in Aatu Ratu, see what version of Elias Paterson you get, sort of test drive the center depth, and then keep your powder dry to see if you can find a midseason upgrade, if and when the team shows that, all right, they are in the playoff mix this year. And honestly, I'm working on a bit of a deep dive. I'm sure we'll have this conversation either later this week or next week, where I was looking historically at when and how often have top 6 centers been moved over the last handful of years, and just quality impact top 6 forwards in general. It actually surprised me. It happens a lot more often mid-season than in the offseason. And I think that only adds to this potential idea that the ideal target probably isn't out there right now, because I'm assuming McTavish will eventually get a contract done with the Ducks. And so if that possibility isn't on the table there, then rather than commit whatever little cap space you already have to Roslovic, a player who would enhance your center depth, but is realistically more of a 3C, and wouldn't fill that second line center role that you're actually trying to address, keep that cap space, see how you do with your current group, and then reassess further down the road.
It's an interesting conversation, and people in the chat are weighing in. And the argument I made for Roslovic when we were talking about this is, yeah, you're right. Roslovic isn't a 2C, but he is a 3C, and he's a pretty good 3C. And I would say Filip Chytil's in that conversation as well. Not a 2C in a perfect world, but a 3C. I think Chytil's better than Roslovic, but obviously there's a giant question mark with Chytil, which then leads to the conversation about depth. And I will say the guys after Chytil on the Canucks center depth chart, Aatu Ratu and Teddy Bluger, neither of those guys are even a 3C. I don't think. Again, Teddy Bluger did well on that line with Garland and Joshua, but that was best case scenario Teddy Bluger, and he wasn't that guy last year. And that's fine. That's not what the Canucks are paying him to be. That was a great story when it was happening, but you can't bank on that. Aatu Ratu played pretty damn well in the AHL. Also played well down the stretch. Let's not forget about that either. Played well down the stretch. still not a bona fide 3C. Might be. Like we might be talking about Aatu Räty in 2 weeks. Like, oh my goodness, this guy just blew the doors off of camp. Kind of like we did last year at camp, actually. Aatu Räty showed out really well, made the roster, started the year as a center on this team. I think he was on Garland's line to start the year last season. We could be having that conversation, but just as much as we say, wait and see what you have and see, like you said, how does an Elias Patterson bounce back look? How does Hedel look as a second line center? You could also find that Aatu Räty is not quite ready to bear the brunt of being the third line center. And that's something that I think you at least have to think about when you approach this kind of conversation about Jack Roslovic and the Canucks center depth as a whole.
It is fair. And I think part of it comes down to how much of an opportunity cost is there if you sign Roslovic as far as further opportunities down the road. Like, that would be my only concern. Put it this way. If you could sign Roslovic today at a number around 1 million on a 1-year deal, you do that immediately, but that's not the reality of the situation.
I'm going to guess they can't do that.
Exactly. And so at a certain price point, if that cap hit is low enough that, and this isn't easy to sort of account for, today, it isn't a simple equation because we always have to keep in mind that cap space accrues and builds over time. And so internally, the Canucks front office is going to have to do the work in terms of who could become available as a centerman in the middle of the season, if and when certain teams fall out of the race. What cap hit do those potential players have? And if we sign Roslovic at X number, can we still acquire that player? Because if they have certain targets in mind that maybe are not available right now, but could be available if certain teams fall out of the playoff race early, then like you want to make sure you have enough room available to go and get those guys, especially because like this last year, the Canucks were able to offload some salary by dumping Desharnais and Heinen mid-season because they had money that they didn't have sort of use for. Whereas when I look at the Canucks roster right now, it's not that they have a lot of contracts you would look at and go, this is an expendable player that you could move to carve out cap space. I mean, outside of maybe Nils Höglander, but we're looking at Höglander and saying, with a fresh start, and we're hoping that he can bounce back, especially with how well he played in the second half of the season. The point I'm trying to make, even when they went out and acquired Elias Lindholm, it required them shipping out Andrei Kuzmenko's salary. And right now, I just don't see a lot of players on the current roster that you would look at and go, you could ship out this guy's cap hit and then bring in a centerman. And so the point I'm trying to make is it's a complex sort of calculation right now. And I don't think Roslovic is so good that you have to sign him and you have to clear the deck for him. I think it comes down to the number, and also this is part of the game of chicken. The closer you get to camp, both for the player and for the team, if they really want to add to that center depth position, like one side is going to blink. And for Roslovic, it may be signing elsewhere too. We'll see what options he has.
Let's get Jeff Patterson's take on it. Jeff's brought to you by our friends over at Greta. By now, you know that Greta is a great spot to watch the big game, but did you know it's an even better spot for your upcoming party or event? If you need a venue for a team building or summer social event, check out Greta. They've got the street food menu, they've got the arcade games, and of course, they've got the bar. It's always a fun time with plenty of options. Excited to get back out to Greta this year for our watch parties. Make Greta your spot for your next event. For more info, go to gretabar.com, Greta Bar YVR. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. A perfect place for a night out. Jeff Patterson joins us now. Jeff, I love the beard. You did this last year too, and I think I said I love the beard. Are you keeping it this year?
You feeling outnumbered, Quads?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I shaved today.
You still got the fresh wedding haircut. Congrats on the wedding. Let me say that. And Jacob, can you bring that photo back up quickly? There we are. Without the jacket, Quads, you look like the bartender at the wedding. Like you look like you're coming to take the order of the two guests at somebody's wedding.
Yes, so I went with the 3-piece suit, and I think it looked great. Maybe not in this photo, but it looked good. Because it was so damn hot that I was like, okay, I'm not going to keep the jacket on all night, but I don't want to just walk around in a white shirt. And I already decided I was going to do a black bow tie. So I went with the vest. And yes, I was wearing sunglasses for most of the day. And I realized once I took the sunglasses off, I looked like the valet or the waiter, whatever, whatever service position you can think of. That's what I ended up looking like. But
well,
I
hope Jacob and Harm tipped well. That's all that really matters.
I have no regrets. I liked the suit.
And Harm, good to see you in the photo, because otherwise, like, you went underground for August. Like, good on you. Like, you just completely shut it down, disappeared for a month. That's not easy to do, but good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. Great to see you. I didn't know that you had a beer. Well, Jacob, I think an hour ago texted that I think he was producing S&P. You were co-hosting it or something along those lines, and mentioned that you had the beard, and I hadn't clocked that. So this was the first reveal, and yeah, we've officially outnumbered Quad. So I'm excited about that.
How long are you keeping it for, Jeff?
It's an open-ended question. I've said that to my family because they've asked the same thing. I don't know. I mean, a couple times a year, you got to play around and we'll see.
Keep it. Yeah. Keep it. I'm team keep it. Jeff, weigh in on the conversation Harm and I were having, not about the beard, the conversation we were having about Jack Roslovic and about the Canucks center depth. And again, I know I sound like a broken record because, as I said, Jeff, you've been on this show a lot in the summer, and every time we talk, I feel like I ask you about Jack Roslovic. But now it's September 2nd, and I think it's worth having this conversation. The Canucks center depth, I worry about it a little bit.
Are you losing sleep? I hope not. But like, I'm starting to wonder if Roslovic's planning to play hockey this season. I say tongue in cheek. I mean, he will find a home. I'm really curious to see what the final number is and where the landing spot is. But look, Drance had reported a couple weeks back that he felt that the Canucks had cooled on Roslovic. So, is it posturing on the team's part? That's always possible. I guess I'm coming around to this idea that they are prepared to start the season with Filip Chytil as their second line center and truly experiment. And I think we have to look at Filip Chytil, and I heard him in his interview on the John Shannon podcast. He sounds like he's healthy. He sounds like he's had a full summer to train. He's excited. What an opportunity for him to be a second-line center in the National Hockey League, and we'll see what he can do with it. But this is a guy with the career high of 45 points. If he's able to take this and run with it, they need him to be more productive than that. That said, twice in his career, he has played 70-plus games in a season. So he has had full seasons in the National Hockey League. And for a guy that's been plagued by injury, I think it's important to give him that benefit of the doubt. But we also know that the more concussions you have, the more susceptible one hit at any point. So it's a high wire act without a doubt on the Canucks side of things here. If they think that, they can trust that Filip Chytil can be a truly productive second line center. But my sense now is that they are going to wade into this season and give it a shot and see what happens. And of course, all of that against the backdrop that their number one center comes with nothing but question marks as well. Like, forget the lower in the lineup depth chart of center. I mean, is there a team in the National Hockey League that has more question marks in their 1 and 2 slots down the middle? And I would say no to that. So, this certainly can't be the long-term outlook for the Vancouver Canucks, but as we've seen with this management group, in-season trades seem to be their specialty, and so it wouldn't surprise me if that's the road that they travel at some point this year. But I guess as we sit here on the 2nd of September, I am prepared for the Canucks to go to camp with Elias Paterson and Filip Chytil as their top 2 centers, and to start the season that way. And then it becomes a question of how does it play out, or how quickly do they pull the trigger, feel that they have to pull the trigger to upgrade that position.
When you take a step back and look at this Canucks offseason, I think during end of season press conferences, there were obviously a lot of promises made in terms of this, high-end, going after high-end top 6 forwards. That obviously didn't happen, but it was also a marketplace where, sure, the Canucks may not have found their 2C, but really no team in the NHL did. And it was an underwhelming offseason for the league as whole in terms of surefire top 6 forwards, whether it's center or at wing, actually changing teams. So with all of that context in mind, how do you grade the Canucks work this offseason? And what are your overall expectations for what the club can achieve this year?
Yeah, and I've spent a fair bit of time thinking about that over the summer, that whether it's Jack Roslovic or I see somebody in the chat saying, what about Pavel Zacha? What about Pavel Zacha? Like, even if they were to acquire either one of those players, like, how does that change the calculus here about making the Vancouver Canucks a whole lot better and truly, getting to a point where they are a contender? And that's what it has to be about. And it just still feels like best case scenario is that this team squeaks into the playoffs. And then I guess the camp that believes anything can happen, if you're in the postseason, they can have their day. But like, it just feels now, when you look at what they've got, the ages of their players, their grade A prospects in the system. And I think the Athletic had their prospect pool 22nd in the National Hockey League. Like, for a team that has scuffled for the better part of a decade, you'd like to think the prospect pool, yeah, it's better than it's been in a little while. And yes, they just won the Calder Cup. But in terms of grade A prospects, Jonathan Lecker-Mackey is really the only guy that, falls into that category. And he had mixed results in the American Hockey League playoffs. This just feels like another year of, trying to milk everything they can out of Quinn Hughes and hoping that there's a trickle down, that their best player is so amazing that he can, raise the performance level of everybody else on the roster. But, what is best case scenario beyond making the playoffs? It's hard to see this team. It doesn't look like a team that's built to really do a whole lot come playoff time. Now, again, you can change the composition of your roster over the course of a season. I think this is a team that's built on the back end, right? Goaltending and defense. And I think, like, if Thatcher Demko can get anywhere close to being Thatcher Demko, that changes an awful lot for this hockey club. I think they're going to be competitive in a lot of lower scoring games. The problem is that there will be a lot of nights that the opponents score 3 or 4, and can the Canucks muster enough offense to squeeze something out of those types of games? And so I guess I'm bracing for a relatively low-scoring hockey club that is built on a foundation of really solid goaltending and a defense core that should be legitimately good. Is that enough? I don't know. Does that move the meter? Does that sell tickets? Those are all questions that the Canucks are going to have to answer here as the season unfolds.
Yeah, I think that's one question too that we're going to start asking more and more is, okay, what's this team's actual plan to cup contention, right? Like how do you get there? And again, it's kind of hard when you have such a variable like Quinn Hughes, right? Where you don't know what's going to happen on July 1st. In fact, we got to talk about the new CBA stuff that was reported today. We're going to get to that and anyone else, but like, there's so many moving parts that it's like, if you asked Patrick Alvin or you asked Jim Rutherford, when we talk to those guys in a couple weeks and you say, what's this team's path to cup contention? Again, I'm sure they'd have an answer of, okay, well, we're going to try to make the team better. Or they'll give some sort of answer. They're not going to sit up there and say, we don't have one. They're going to give an answer. But realistically, you have one path to get there if you keep Quinn Hughes. And I would argue it's easier if you have Quinn Hughes to get there. Then you have another path that should take a lot longer if you don't have Quinn Hughes. And right now they don't really know which path it's going to be. They might have some sense, but again, that's just such a big variable that it's so hard to sit here today and say, yes, this is how they're going to get there. It's a question I've started to wonder about too, though, Jeff. So I'm actually glad
and let me just throw this at you guys. Like, when Patrick Alvin came in, the Canucks were deep at center, and obviously the defense core wasn't good enough. This management group has reallocated resources and taken from the middle of the ice and addressed the defense. But 3 years on, are they any further ahead, I guess, in the grand scheme, right? Like, now there are questions about center. You can't win a Stanley Cup without center depth. So, yes, the 2 rounds of playoffs against Nashville and Edmonton were a blast. They were a ton of fun. I want more of that. But 3 years under this management group, really, they've just taken from one side, sort of shifted the coconuts, and you do the great reveal of the shell game, and now you've got strength on the back end. But are they much further ahead than they were when this management group took over?
That got me thinking. So, follow up and a question for you both. And Jeff, I want you to answer first. Look at this team on paper right now. This lineup that we're talking about. This team heading into training camp. What pieces do they need to get to a level where you say, yes, they are further ahead? I'll go first. I think it's a midseason acquisition of a legit 2C if the play warrants that. Now, the reason I bring up Jack Roslovic and the reason I keep bringing up center depth is because you have to get to that point first. And let's also not lose sight of the whole fact that you need to compete this year in an effort to get Quinn Hughes to stay in Vancouver. It's important that they're good this year. And that's the balancing act that you have to find, because yes, you'd like to keep your powder dry, as someone in the chat said, and as Harmon said as well. You'd like to keep your powder dry. You'd like to wait and see a little bit here, but you also need to make that decision that you're going to be good enough to get in a position where it warrants going out and, again, giving up premium assets, giving up a good prospect, giving up a first round pick to go get a legit 1/2 center that can play right behind Elias Patterson or ahead of Elias Patterson.
Sure, but this team isn't just one center away from being a contender. I mean, you look
at
the Florida Panthers, right? They've won the last 2 cups. You've got Sasha Barkov, but you've got Sam Reinhart, who's out there scoring 4 goals in a deciding game and has become one of the elite goal scorers in the National Hockey League. Oh, well, the Edmonton Oilers, they've been in the final the last couple of years. Zach Hyman, a 50-goal season playing with 2 of the great players, but you got to finish at this level as well. Like, I'm saying the Canucks need a ton of help down the middle, but they also need elite-level scoring wingers. That a 28-goal Jake DeBrusk, that was a nice season. Like, career high, 5.5, nothing wrong with Jake DeBrusk's season, but he's not a 48-goal scorer or even a 38-goal scorer and has never been more than a 28-goal scorer. Like, this is the problem. That how do you get from here to there when you're drafted in the middle of the first round? And Braden Coots may play a role down the road, but he's not ready to make the Vancouver Canucks a contender. So, this feels like another year of kicking the can down the road. And that's unfortunate, because I want nothing more for the fan base here to get to a point where they can believe that, playoffs aren't just one of those things that happens once every 5 years. Like, I want to get on a run so that the Canucks are, guaranteed basically a playoff spot. And then from there, it's like, how far can they push it come postseason? And it just feels like there's still a ton of work to do to get this team to that point. And it's such a shame when you've got Quinn Hughes in his absolute apex statistical prime as he gets set to turn 26 here in a couple of months.
One sort of, this isn't an acquisition per se, but Adam Foote is obviously coming in as the new head coach of the team. I'm curious, J-Pat, because you've seen a lot of different coaching changes in this market, and I think a lot of focus and attention will naturally be on Foote in training camp. But when you step back before games are played, how much can you really learn and assess whether a head coach is going to have success with a particular group or not? Because one concept I've been thinking about is you can learn in a training camp setting what a head coach is going to prioritize, and you'll learn about different line combinations they're going to experiment with. But my thought has always sort of been that until games are played, you have no idea how well it's going to be executed. I think back to, let's say Rick Tocchet was a new coach for the Canucks last training camp, and you were just looking at him in a vacuum there. The focus would have been, they're focusing on rush offense, this and that. All of that went out the door when games actually started, right? There was no difference. So you learned in that setting, okay, from Tocchet, they were focusing on this, but you didn't actually get an idea on whether that effort was going to be successful or not. Or even like you think about Jay Woodcroft in Edmonton a couple of years ago, they were focusing on transitioning from, I believe, man-on-man defense to a zone defense. And the thought of that sounded great. Games started, they were a disaster and got fired, right? So again, to step back, like, what are you going to be looking and hoping to see from Adam Foote that fans can actually meaningfully draw from when we won't actually have games to assess?
Yeah, and I wrote a column at Canucks Army yesterday about things that we should learn about the Canucks in the month of September. And I prefaced it by saying, don't start playing for keeps until October 9th. So we're not going to get every answer to every question we have. But I do think we are going to, in the month of September, we're going to see Thatcher Demko for ourselves, right? Nobody has seen this guy. We've been told that he's having a great summer, healthy and training, but we saw him last year at Penticton, and remember, didn't play a game until December 10th. So same with Elias Patterson. Like, for all the talk around him over the course of the summer, we're going to get a chance to see, like, does he look different? Is he invested? We'll get a sense, as you mentioned, about some of the things that Adam Foote is thinking and considering about line mates or defensive pairs, special teams, some of those types of things. But in terms of systems, you're right. Like, as much as I think it would help Foote and the Canucks to limit their experimentation in the preseason to sort of try to get some chemistry right away, the preseason is important to other guys, though. Like, whether it's a Jonathan Lecker-Mackey, like, you've got to put him in a position to succeed. And so that means playing him with legitimate scoring NHL players. And maybe one of them's Elias Patterson, but Elias Patterson probably, in a perfect world, would find his legitimate NHL line mates right away and in training camp and the preseason. So you can't sort of, serve both masters. Like, training camp's just a necessary evil, same with the preseason. And so it really is going to take, I think, the first 15, 20 games to get a read on the Vancouver Canucks. And yet, like, Adam Foote needs to get off to a decent start. I think we all know that. Even though it's his first go round, like, there is pressure on him right away. And with the personnel that he's got to work with, he's got to forge, how different are his relationships with players? We know that Quinn Hughes went to bat for him. I'm kind of curious to get a sense of how different the relationships are between this head coach and Rick Tocchet. So, yeah, I think training camp's going to be fascinating. And the other thing, guys, and we've made this point before, but, like, for all the talk about training camp and we're going to get answers, training camp's 3 days of on-ice sessions. Like, it goes by so quickly. And as much as you want to believe that you're going to get the great reveal, training camp is really just about sort of, pressing as much as they can into those 3 days. And they start playing on the 21st, the Sunday. Like, they've got ice in Penticton on the Saturday, and they've got a game in Seattle on the Sunday night. That's their first preseason game. So, training camp is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then they start to play the first of their 6 preseason games. And I guess that's when we're really going to start to get some answers about what this coaching staff is thinking, where guys are slotted. Just quickly, Harm, one of the things that I'm always fascinated by at training camp, and you touched on it with Aatu Räty last year, he was on a line with Connor Garland and Nils Höglander. He was given 2 NHL wingers to work with, and he was one of the darlings of training camp last year. And Pia Suter got hurt in the final preseason game. Aatu Räty played in the opening game of the season last year for the Vancouver Canucks. So I'm fascinated to see with some of those Abbotsford guys that start in the playoff run, whether it's Karlsson, whether it's Baines, whether it's Sasson, who are they aligned with at training camp? Are they put with other NHL players, or are they placed on lines with other American Hockey League guys? I think from that you can defer a little bit about, what is organizationally, what are they thinking about the chances of those guys making the big league roster?
I had one thing I wanted to ask you about this, because you just brought up Abbotsford and it interested me. There's obviously this battle at the bottom of the lineup, bottom of the roster, really, for this spot. We've got Baines, we've got Sasson, you see Kravtsov in the mix as well now. Obviously, Linus Karlsson. Give me one of those names. And, let's take Kravtsov out of it. Let's only focus on the AHL guys that you got to see up close and personal. Which of those guys is going to have the longest NHL career with the Vancouver Canucks? Who plays the most games with the Vancouver Canucks when all's said and done?
Just the guys you mentioned. We're taking Räty out of that equation as well.
Throw him in there. Yeah.
I would probably say him, just based on the position that he plays, his age, still just 22. Like, I sometimes forget about that, but he's certainly got age on his side. It's go time now for both Karlsson and Baines, just where they are, the stage of their careers. Karlsson had an amazing playoff run, and I hope some of that can translate. Baines has succeeded at every level, but the limited action he's had in the National Hockey League, there has been no bottom line, and that has to change. Like, if Arshdeep Baines is going to be an everyday NHLer, he doesn't have to be a 20-goal scorer, but he can't have 1 point. And that's what he's got on his NHL resume. And, he's played and had a couple of call-ups. Like, it's not just, he's played 3 games and he got a point. Like, there has to be more of a bottom line there. And I know that he has to focus on other things, if he's a 4th line guy, and be conscientious defensively and all that. But you can't make it in the NHL without some sort of offensive contribution. And again, he's figured it out at every level. He's been a scorer at every level. So I want to give him, I know that the organization is high on him, but I put Linus Karlsson slightly ahead of Arshdeep Bains just in the head-to-head battle. If there was one job for those two guys, I think Karlsson has figured it out a little bit more at the pro game. And I could see Linus Karlsson being a 4th line guy, but getting second power play unit duty just because of his ability to score in close the way that he did throughout that run to the Calder Cup. So, I'm going to be watching those two guys closely, but Ratu is really interesting to me just because missed most of the playoffs, the injury, we're told that it shouldn't have limited him, but everybody in Abbotsford had a short off season. So, in terms of him putting in the work necessary to try to gain the step that he needs at the NHL level, he really had 2 months and wasn't able to play when we last saw him. So I don't know how that affected him. I'm curious to talk to him when we get a chance to chat with Atu Ratu just about his summer and sort of how quickly it went by. Those are some of the storylines certainly that we'll all be focusing on, I think, when this team arrives in Penticton.
Jeff, great stuff as always. Can't wait to share an Airbnb with you again in Penticton. Going to be a lot of fun. Jeff, thanks for doing this.
This one's got Pac-Man too. We talked about that the last time, but stand-up Pac-Man.
I cannot wait. Excellent job by Jacob.
I'm with you guys. It's September now. It's go time. There's going to be guys skating on ice here around town soon, and looking forward to it.
Jeff, thank you. Appreciate it. There he is. Jeff Patterson, host of Rink Wide Vancouver, which you should be watching this upcoming season. It's going to be a lot of fun. And Jeff will be on the show every week, as he normally is. All right, let's get to our poll question. It's about the Lapidal. It's about the Canucks center depth. And I need to correct something before I read the poll question. The people in the chat that are like, stop talking about Roslovic. He's not an upgrade on Hedel. It's not the point. The point is that he's an upgrade on Ratu. And he's an upgrade on Bluger. And it's an upgrade to the Canucks center depth. Like, that matters. And again, I don't want people to start to, just get too ahead of themselves thinking, you can just make the deadline acquisition. Because this is an important season. And you can't really afford, not at least in my mind, you can't really afford to have a super slow start to the season and just be out of it by, December. And you're in that place they've always been where it's like, they're only 7 points out of a wild card spot. You can't end up there. You have to be better than that. And if they're not, on paper right now, I think they're a fringe team. I think they could be there, but again, some things have to go right. I think adding a Roslovic to this mix really helps the team.
Maybe. The more I've thought about it, though, the more I've warmed up personally to the idea of, when the Joshua trade first happened, I was on board with the idea of signing Roslovic. And sure, if it's cheap enough, I wouldn't mind it. But the more I've thought about it, the more I've warmed up to the idea of let's see what happens with this current group, because how much is Roslovic going to move the needle, even if it's, let's say, at the 3C position? Because put it this way, if you, let's say, have Patterson, Hedel, Roslovic down the middle, the concern there would be, do you have a guy there that Adam Foote would look at and go, we can trust this guy to play hard defensive matchups? And you could respond and say, well, that's what Teddy Blueger's for, but he's ideally your 4th line center. And the issue there is, stylistically, Paterson, Hedel, Roslovic. I mean, Paterson's got a responsible 2A game, and Hedel's not bad defensively, but just physically, those are 3 pretty slight guys that don't have much of a physical game. You wouldn't look at any one of those guys as, sure, Paterson's great defensively, but you're not all of a sudden going to start feeding him a ton of defensive zone starts because you need him to put up a ton of offense. And so if you've got more of an offensively inclined sort of 2C right now in Hedel, Roslovic, is he going to, as an offense first guy that has some defensive forwards? How much is he really going to be an upgrade? He will be offensively, but there could also be a trade-off compared to, I'm curious to see what version of Ratu they get, because he's by far going to be their best faceoff man. And that's another part of the conversation is Chytil's a below average faceoff guy. So, and we know over the last few seasons, this team has lost its two best guys in the draw, JT Miller and Bo Horvat. So that's going to be, really interesting to sort of monitor. And that's why I'm leaning more towards the idea of, I wouldn't mind if they just keep their cap space, keep the powder dry, assess if this team is worth investing in. And if they are having a successful season, then yeah, you go out and get that player. But also, as much as we focus on the whole getting a center thing, to me, I think we also need to be careful not to tunnel vision this idea that it needs to be a center. This team just needs an elite forward, period. Whether it's at the center ice position, whether it's on the wing, that is this team's biggest weakness. When you compare them to the big dogs in the Western Conference, it's the fact that I look at this roster, and even if you assume Paterson's going to bounce back and be a point per game centerman, you're not going to go very deep in the playoffs if Brock Besser or Jake DeBrusk is your best winger. That's just not something, especially like Brock. It was great that he had the 40-goal season, but that is likely an outlier with his career. He's more been a 25 to 30 goal guy. That's what I'm going to expect him to be moving forward. And with that in mind, like, again, just keep that powder dry and go out and get the best forward you can mid-season, whether it's a center or a winger, if this team starts off strong and proves that it's worth investing in.
Let's read the poll question, which is, do you think Filip Chytil will be the Canucks second line center on opening night? 86.7% of people say yes, 13.3% say no. Do you think the Canucks have something up their sleeve? I'm going to say yes, Filip Chytil is the Canucks second line center on opening night. And then I think it's Ratu right behind him. So we'll see. Kevin K wants us to know that Ty Mueller is great in the dot, which is absolutely true. We saw that with the Abbotsford Canucks. It's going to be interesting to see how this team kind of shakes out. I just think people shouldn't scoff at the idea of adding a guy who scored 22 goals with the Carolina Hurricanes last year and has scored 22 in the past, exactly 22 in the past throughout his career. People shouldn't scoff at that idea the way they are. But again, I don't know what he's asking for on a contract, and that's a really important part of the equation as well. So you agree that Chytil is going to be the center depth on opening night?
Definitely. And honestly, with Chytil, the biggest question mark is health, because I'll be honest with you, the way Chytil profiles to me on a good team, he's a high-end third line center. And we know this because it isn't just what he's done in the regular season. When the New York Rangers made one of their runs to the Eastern Conference Final, he was on that kid line with Lafreniere and Kakko. He had, I believe, 7 goals in 20 games playing on that third line, not getting much power play opportunity, but he was outstanding for them. So we know that he could be a high-end 3C on a cup contending team / a low-end 2C. Where even last season, he began the year before he got hurt is arguably the Rangers' best centerman, because Zibanejad started slow, Trocheck started slow, and he was driving play. Fortunately, got hurt. But if he's healthy, right, he can be an acceptable low-end 2C. Like, you're not panicking if Chytil's in the 2C spot. And really, the way to look at it is this. I went back to last season and looked at the bar of, okay, if you're a top 50 center in the NHL, what kind of point production range should you be in? And the bare minimum to sort of be in that top 50 range, where if you're a top 50 centerman in the NHL, you're probably like, you're fine. You're passable in a 2C spot. You're talking about a bare minimum 45-point pace prorated or over 82 games. Right now, ideally, you'd be closer to 50 plus points, but like bare minimum, if you can deliver 45 points over 82 games, you're a low-end 2C. Well, Filip Chytil's had a 22-goal, 45-point season on his resume. And even the last 2 years where he has been hurt, you look at the point per game pace, it's around half a point per game. So Chytil, to me, is a guy that has been in that 40 to 45-point range, playing 14, 15 minutes a night. If you increase his usage, I think that he could reliably give you 45, maybe even 50 if he breaks out. And, people will look at the 15 games he had as a 2C in Vancouver after the trade. And this is where it's important to keep in mind. Sure, the point production wasn't there in the sense that 6 points in 15 games, that doesn't jump off the page, obviously. but we all saw him play. We saw how dangerous he was. We saw how much offense he was creating in terms of shots and chances. And you look at his time there, Hedo's line only scored on 3% of their shots at 5-on-5. So he was so unlucky. He was so snake bitten, and he had really strong underlying numbers. Canucks controlled around 55% of expected goals. They were out shooting, out chancing teams. I think you're fine starting the season with him as your 2C. It's more so what happens at the 1C spot and what happens at the 3C spot. Because I feel fairly confident if Hedl is healthy, like I have a fairly good idea of what Hedl is going to be, and that's like a passable low end 2C. What I don't know is what Elias Pettersson
will also be that.
Yeah, like is Elias Pettersson going to be a 50 to 60 point centerman, or is he going to bounce back and be a 90 point star? Because that changes the equation in a massive way, right? If Elias Pettersson is playing at an 80 to 90 point pace, and you have, let's say, a 45 point second line center, you're fine. Like, you're totally fine, especially if your strength is on the back end and in net, and you've got a decent group of wingers. That's going to be enough to make the playoffs. And then the other part is the 3C, where we'll see whether it's Ratu or Bluger. There's a lot of uncertainty in terms of what performance level are you going to get there, right? So to me, the 2C spot, like Hedl, if he's healthy, I more or less already know approximately what his baseline is going to be. But to me, the 1C spot and the 3C spot is actually where there's more volatility and where I'm less certain about what level of production are you going to get.
You didn't hear my Filip Hedl PP1 take, but that's my take. Put Filip Hedl on PP1. We saw again, you need a left shot, right? Like, let's remember the criteria. You could put a right shot, but you'd like a left shot. That's when that power play is most effective. You'd like a left shot, and they had Garland on there at times just for the zone entries. Man, zone entries are Filip Hedl's favorite thing. Zone entries are the best by Filip Hedl. He loves entering the zone with control. And again, he's enough of a threat. I think he's enough of an offensive threat, where Garland really wasn't on the power play, that he's going to make teams actually have to defend him, because he's going to be able to make things happen if he gets the puck. What say you? Do you like my Filip Hedl on PP1 take?
I don't think Filip Hedl is the solution to power play 1, but I don't think they have that in-house anyway. I think that's like they need another elite forward, right? Like, that's where we've brought up they don't have an elite winger. They could use another, whether it's at center or a winger, they just need another elite player. Whether you're throwing around Hedl, Evander Kane, Connor Garland, I don't really love any of those options as the fourth forward on PP1. Now, Hedl will give you the zone entries, but the problem I see is that's really his only offensive skill set that I think would be ultra valuable to a power play, because what are Hedl's weaknesses? It's his shot. He's shot below 10% in his NHL career. And whether it's the bumper or the flank, that's where you need an above average finisher. Now, that's also a weakness for Connor Garland, but that's also why Connor Garland isn't the perfect solution. And at least with Garland, it actually surprised me how much he produced on the power play last season. He had 7 goals and 16 points. But like, that's not nothing. So if you want to try Hedl there, sure. I'm not gonna argue against that take, but I don't think Hedl is going to be the solution to fix power play 1, especially because, let's game this out, right? You'll have Paterson on 1.5 wall. You'll have Quinn Hughes manning the point. And then between DeBrusk and Besser, one of those guys I imagine will be net front. One of those guys I expect would be maybe the bumper spot. Unless you want to throw Brock on the flank, but I haven't always loved Brock on the flank. More likely, I think you'll see Brock either in the net front or the bumper. That means you need a second flank spot.
Bumper, right? Like, right shot bumper. That's different.
Really what you're trying to replace is JT Miller on the power play, the other flank player. And you need, if you're going to be an effective flank player on the power play in the NHL, you either need an elite shot from distance, or you need like elite passing ability. And
to me, it has to be Paterson.
Heedle doesn't have either of those.
It has to be Paterson.
Patterson's on one of the half walls, but you need 2 flank players.
No. Take Paterson off the one where when he gets the puck, he stick handles a little bit and then gets it stolen from him because he's on his offside. Maybe he has to rotate there at some point because he should be a good one-timer threat. But I like Patterson on the left. I would like to see Patterson on the left with what you have. I would like to see him on the left, I think.
Sure. I don't feel strongly about it either way. But even then, right half wall doesn't change that overall point that I don't think this forward group has 2 elite flank power play players.
People are bringing up Evander Kane in the chat. Kevin K, Jax, where'd it go? Oh, no, Jax was saying Brock, net front. But Evander Kane, people are bringing up Evander Kane in all this.
I mean, look, experiment with it, right? Like they don't have an in-house like clear, this guy needs to get the first shot as the 4th forward. So sure, throw Kane in that mix too. I don't mind. But again, with Kane as well, he's more a player that I would expect to be most effective net front. And with Besser and DeBrusque, you already got 2 guys who do their best offensive damage in and around the blue paint. What they're missing again is it's not just throwing another 4 on the power play who can have success there. It's roles, like specific skill sets that you're looking for. And to me, it's not just, can you find a guy that has had power play success in the past? It's, can you find a guy who has the specific skill set of being able to have success on the flank? And again, maybe then your best option is, all right, as much as we think Besser's best at the net front, and maybe he's the best secondary flank option we have, and you go Paterson and Besser on the flanks, and then maybe you do go DeBrusque and Kane, where one of those guys in net front and one of those guys is Bumper. But that's honestly where, for this coaching staff, the stakes are highest there. Not just the power play, but also the PK, to see who's going to take the first unit PK spot with Pia Suter's departure to play with Teddy Bluger. Like, those are, like, special teams are always where coaching staffs have the most influence rather than 5-on-5 play, because the system, I imagine, isn't going to change a lot, but special teams, especially because you have some holes, this is where coaching staff is going to have to get a little bit creative, think a little bit outside of the box. And this is where I think this coaching staff is going to have some pressure on it to figure things out.
I like this one from Walk. We'll end the power play conversation with this. Jacobs is letting us know we got to get to anyone else, and he's right. Walk said this: should be Leckermacki and Paterson on both half walls, but it won't be. Give me Jonathan Leckermacki on the power play.
Yeah, well, he has to make the team.
They did it last year.
He has to make the team.
Yeah, I know.
I agree, though. Like, that's long term. That's the guy.
Yeah. There's another reason you should get a center. But anyways, let's move on. Let's get to anyone else. Anyone else is brought to you by the Vancouver Canadians, who are back home for the final 6-game homestand of the season. It's your last chance to see the Seas. There's a nooner at the Nat on Friday the 5th, fireworks on Saturday the 6th, and a family fun Sunday on September 7th to close out the regular season. The kids get to run the bases post-game. Make sure you get out to the Nat. You're running out of time, folks. Get back out there. Get to the Nat Bailey Stadium. Go watch the Vancouver Canadians. Always a ton of fun at the ballpark. For tickets, call 604-872-5232 or check out CanadiansBaseball.com. All right, a couple things I wanted to get to. PTO candidates, Harm. We're in the season, the prediction season, the how can you fill out the rest of the team season. These are the kind of conversations we're going to have. Another thing we're going to talk about is PTOs as we get closer to training camp. For those that don't know, a PTO, pro tryout contract. Yes, that acronym doesn't quite work, but they're called PTOs. Pro tryout contract. You get to come to camp. You get to compete for not only an NHL contract with the team you're on the tryout contract with, but the rest of the league as well. We saw Sammy Blais come in last year, ends up signing an AHL contract with the Abbotsford Canucks. He spent the season in Abbotsford, played really well, and now he has an NHL contract with the Montreal Canadiens. It's a chance to resurrect your career. It's a chance to give it, you didn't get signed. One last kick at the can. For other guys, no naming names here, but for other guys, you show up, it's so evident you're so washed, and you go play in Div 2 Europe, Switzerland, and you're like the 7th best scorer on your team there.
Yeah, well, it's a hit the vet minimum for preseason games sometimes.
Yes, exactly. So
do you remember Danny DeKeyser? Danny DeKeyser on a PTO.
Yes. When people were like, could Danny DeKeyser be the Canucks' second pairing defenseman? Could that be an option? Yes, I remember. Wasn't that the year that Hamonic wasn't around at the start?
No, I think that may have been. I think that the Kaiser PTO was the year after. I think it was the year after. Okay. I don't think DeKeyser and Hamonic overlapped.
No, they didn't. You're right. What ended up happening to Danny DeKeyser? What was the logic behind that? I don't remember.
I imagine it was to hit the because for preseason games, I can't remember exactly how many, but you need a certain number of players that have hit a certain experience threshold in terms of NHL games played. Like you can't just ice an AHL roster entirely for an NHL preseason game. And of course, certain guys on your team who are actually good veterans don't love playing preseason games. So it's a way to like having a DeKeyser means that one of your actually good defensemen, like a Filip Hronek, if Filip Hronek is a player that, and I'm just throwing this out as a hypothetical, not saying this actually applies to him, but if he was a player that only really wants to play the last couple of preseason games to tune up, well then signing a player like DeKeyser in that time on a PTO allows you to then dress him in a preseason game so that Hronek doesn't have to play.
Okay. So Danny DeKeyser was 2022. I had to look it up. I wasn't exactly sure. Yeah, 2022 was Danny DeKeyser. So the point I'm making with PTOs is that Tyson Cole wrote about 5 players the Canucks could bring in on a PTO. And again, this isn't necessarily, this guy's gonna play for the team. He's gonna be great. They could sign some PTOs. It's like you just said, Harm. There's other reasons to sign players to PTOs. There's one name on the list, and you can go read it right now at CanucksArmy.com. Really good story. But one name on the list stands out to me, and that is Tyler Mott. Bring me back Tyler Mott. Bring back Tyler Mott on a PTO, not just to play preseason games. Bring him back to compete for the bottom of the lineup spot. Bring back Tyler Mott. I am all for it. Remains unsigned. Bring him back. 30 years old, still ripe old age of 30. Bring him back. Tyler Mott. I want to see it. Tyler Mott reunion. Make it happen.
I love Tyler Mott while he was here, but that ship has sailed.
Why?
This team already.
Who's killing penalty? Run through your penalty killing forwards for me, Harm. No P.S. Suter. Who's killing penalties for this team?
This team has enough. Push Kiefer Sherwood up to PK1. Who cares? Sherwood was a good penalty killer.
Yeah, sure, but I'm telling you that this kind of attitude who cares? It'll fit. Okay, well, who's killing
Drew
after
O'Connor,
him?
Elias Patterson.
Elias Patterson.
Connor Garland.
You're talking about the forward, Elias Patterson?
Yeah.
And then you rattled off Connor Garland next? This is my point.
All these guys killed penalties last year. I'm not.
They're also going to need to play like top 6 minutes and power play one time.
Okay, look at most teams. Jack Eichel kills penalties.
That's phenomenal. Is Elias Patterson Jack Eichel?
Mitch Marner kills penalties. Look around. Sebastian Aho kills penalties. Star players kill penalties. This isn't the 1990s where you can only have third and fourth liners kill penalties.
Okay. Well, what did
this team has enough? Like? This team already at Carlson, Bain, Sasson, Ratu. Poor Lecker Mackey is looking on the outside. Is on the outside looking in on a roster spot, and you want to bring in another guy to compete for a roster spot?
Mott, better than all those guys in the PK. Better than all of them. And also,
where does he fit?
On a PTO. It doesn't have to be a contract. It's okay. Great vibes.
The last thing this team needs is another fringe fourth line player. They have enough of those. The Abbotsford run proved that.
It's a PTO, Harm. It's a PTO.
He's 30 years old. We know what he is. He has no offense.
Danny DeKeyser was 34.
Yeah, and what happened to Danny DeKeyser?
So? It's not our problem.
Awful. Didn't make the team.
Okay, it's not our problem if Tyler Mott doesn't make the team. Bring him in on a PTO. That's all I'm saying. Bring him in on a PTO. Get him to be a part of that mix because, hey, if Tyler Mott spends 3 weeks...
What if Max Sasson is the next Tyler Mott? You're then speedy, defensively reliable.
Wouldn't you want him to learn from the Tyler Mott? How to keep Tyler Mott?
Okay, then what happens if Mott has a good camp, ends up being like a replacement level fourth liner? Meanwhile, Sasson doesn't get an opportunity, thrown on waivers, claimed elsewhere, and because he's younger, maybe ends up becoming something because he gets an opportunity that you didn't give him because you decided to bring 30-year-old Tyler Mott on a PTO.
Well, Tyler Mott would have to be phenomenal to make that happen, is the point. He would have to be a real difference maker, not a fringe guy. And then at that point, what are we complaining about? Oh, my steak is too juicy. My lobster's too buttery. I've recently heard this. I like this saying. But no, seriously, honestly, like PTO. We're talking PTO here. Great vibes. Absolutely love Tyler Mott. Everybody loves Tyler Mott. You won't hear a teammate say a bad thing about Tyler Mott. Not even Adam Gaudette, who once fought Tyler Mott in a practice. You won't hear a bad thing about Tyler Mott. Bring him back. Bring him on a PTO. Absolute vibes pick. There's your guy. Gets you those veteran games played that you were just talking about. I really want to see Tyler Mott back in the Canucks uniform, even if it's just for the preseason.
I disagree, but okay.
All right. Another piece of news that came out over the weekend. Did you see this Canucks prospect? Anthony Romani, his Michigan State will take on Penn State at the Penn State football stadium. What's it called, Jacob? You play college football.
Penn State's football stadium is Beaver Stadium.
There you go. See, I knew you'd knew it. I knew you would know that.
Third largest stadium in the U.S., I believe.
I thought second.
Second or third. Michigan, because Michigan's number one. I don't know if Penn State or Ohio State is two. They're 2 and 3. So.
Oh, Ohio State might be number 2. I watched the Ohio State NCAA game. Now, the point the reason I bring this up is because obviously the junior hockey landscape has changed. The route that players are taking has changed. And hey, Penn State, like we should also mention, that's Gavin McKenna's school. Like that's why it's not Anthony Romani's a part of this story, but we're not leading with it because Anthony Romani is a part of the story. This is interesting because this is a clear effort to create some more NCAA hockey fans, right? And you just look at NCAA football, right? Like look at college football. You watch College Game Day and you look at the crowds out there that are showing up early for these college games. If you can get like an eighth, if you can get college hockey to like an eighth of the popularity of college football, you have done a phenomenal job. You have created so much more revenue for your school. It would be great news. It would be great if they could get it to even an eighth of the size of college football in the United States.
Quads, they only need to get it to like a tenth, and
it's a tenth. Sure, exactly. Like, but you understand the point, and you agree with me, right? Like 100%. This is an effort. They're going to sell the tickets for $5, or hey, you know what? Free admission for students, or hey, we'll pay you to come to the game. I don't know.
It usually is free admission for students.
Yeah.
Now, like for football games at Penn State, you're probably pushing $200-$300 a ticket. But
yeah, that ain't free.
For a hockey game, you could sell them for $5, get 100,000 people there, and think of what that does to grow the game and to grow the college game specifically.
Exactly. So this is the reason I bring it up. Yes, Anthony Romani is going to be a part of it, which is cool. But yeah, like that is Gavin McKenna. That is the best. Should be like the best college player, or one of the best that's going to have eyes on him this season. Going to be really interesting. Like I said, and someone already brought it up in the chat. How does this affect the WHL? How does this affect the BCHL? And it's an ongoing conversation. No one knows the answer. No one knows the answer. I do know that like the Medicine Hat Tigers can't be too happy that Gavin McKenna went to Penn State, right? Like they can't be too happy that that's happening. I feel safe saying that I don't think the Medicine Hat Tigers are thrilled that they lost the guy that was going to help them sell tickets this year. Yeah, it is going to be really interesting. And obviously I'm a big junior hockey fan. Like I encourage people a lot on this show all the time. Go support your junior hockey team. Go watch a BCHL game. Go watch a WHL game. You'll have a lot of fun. It's pretty damn good hockey. It's a good time. It's a good time. But yeah, there's no avoiding the conversation about like, okay, how does this affect them? And the truthful answer is we're only a year into it now. We still don't know. Like we don't really know what the answer is. We do know it's going to result in them leaving or losing some star players. Again, Porter Martone goes to Michigan State. Like it is going to result in star players leaving the leagues. Yes.
Yeah. With every year that passes, it's fascinating because if you go back to, let's say 2018, and this is when I was more so watching prospects I wouldn't say all the time, but a lot more often. I would say the NCAA was still interesting to watch if I wanted to see, let's say, a Quinn Hughes play. Mm-hmm. But I still found it more intriguing to watch, say, the Ontario Hockey League. Whereas 7 years later, Even looking back to last season, I found the NCAA and the overall quality of play more entertaining than the CHL leagues. Just like subjectively, as a hockey fan, I found myself more inclined to watch NCAA hockey and the Frozen Four more so than I have, let's say, the Memorial Cup playoffs, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that trend is only going to increase as we see more of these. And honestly, I think it really is the McKenna type players that drive it because, like, to me, I love watching Celebrini at BU during his draft year. Like, that alone made me watch NCAA hockey.
Dude, Gavin McKenna made his announcement on ESPN. Did you saw this, right? We didn't talk about this, but did you see this?
No, I don't think I caught that.
He went on ESPN. I don't know what show. It wasn't just sport. I don't know. It was like SportsCenter or something. Some like nationally televised ESPN show. Okay. And he's sitting in his room or whatever. And he's like, it was okay. You remember the decision when he went to go play with Miami Heat? They made that like a 2-hour special. This was more like a 2-minute special, but it was still like, Gavin McKenna, where are you going to play next year? And then he like bends down, picks up a hat and puts on the Penn State hat to say like, yeah.
Okay. Now I remember. I saw the clip on social media.
Yeah, that was probably the entirety of it. The clip, you saw the entirety of the segment. It wasn't very long. But my point being, Harm, that you're right. Like, this is going to a bigger audience. This is going to a stadium that seats 100,000 people. This is going out to a nationally televised audience in the United States, and that matters. Like, that matters. There's going to be a push to make NCAA hockey more popular. And don't even get me started. Like, if it starts to get more popular, what happens if the SEC just jumps in and says, "Yep, we're going to start a hockey program"?
So that was
what if LSU and Alabama are like, "Yeah, you know what? Let's start a hockey program." Like, seriously, like, what if that happens? Jacob, take it away.
So Quads, like, for those who don't know, there's only 65 schools that have Division I hockey. There are close to 200 something, or maybe even closer to 250 actual Division I schools. And a lot of the schools with D1 hockey are actually D2 or just D2 programs normally. There are some big schools in popular hockey markets that don't have Division I hockey yet. I think about Rutgers in New Jersey, New York, New Jersey. I think about Pitt in Pittsburgh, right? Mm-hmm. I think about, you've got a bunch of schools in the Northeast that have hockey right now, but a couple of those big markets are missing. Out West, I think about like University of Washington with what the Kraken have done in Seattle. I think about UNLV in Vegas, right? Pick any NHL market. There's a Division I university there that probably doesn't yet have a hockey program. So if you get more Division I hockey programs, there will be more spots available, which could be harmful for the CHL. Talking about CHL, BCHL in the chat right now, with only 65 Division I programs, there's such a limited number of spots available, right? There will still be very good players playing junior hockey at both the major junior levels. That's your WHL, QM, JHL, OHL, as well as at the tier 2 level, right? So that's your BCHL, your USHL. The USHL is basically on par with major junior now, but that's kind of what you're at. Now, if you get up to 80 Division I teams, that's when these smaller leagues start to worry. I don't think the BCHL is going to die because you're still going to get a lot of players who are, 18, 19, 20 years old, who are good students. They're going to go play college hockey, but they're not on NHL draft radar. They're not going to leave early and go to school at 18. And they'll just stick it out in the BCHL because they'll be the best player on their BCHL team and then go play college at 2021. The tough thing for the CHL to deal with is going to be losing their top players at age 17, 18. I think you're going to see a bunch of guys in the CHL now. You're going to see teams pushing for more exceptional status players to get guys in at 15. So you get them for age 15, 16, 17, get 3 years out of them, playing for the, Saginaw Spirit or the Vancouver Giants or, the Drummondville Voltigeurs, whatever CHL team you pick, they're going to want these top guys sooner. So I think you're going to start seeing a push there. You're going to see a lot more 16 and 17-year-olds in the CHL rather than being like a 17, 18, 19-year-old league. So a lot of interesting things on this discussion, but overall, the idea of college hockey growing is exciting because the atmosphere and the actual on-ice product is unique in the world of hockey, and it's unique in the world of sports in general. And I'm all for it. I think it's tons of fun to watch. And I think the CHL probably could learn a lot from college hockey in the way that their game day experience is set up and the way that their schedule is set up to maybe be more conducive in keeping players around rather than essentially playing a professional hockey schedule. Like, I know they don't play 82 games. I think it's 65 in the CHL
rides.
now.
Dude, there's no
bus rides
in NCAA.
No bus rides. You're basically only playing weekends. You don't have to, you don't have to spend a Thursday night overnight on a bus in December trying to get to Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. So I think
that sounds personal. That sounds like something that happened to you.
No. I luckily did not have to do that, but I did have some overnight bus rides home from Prince George that were not fun. So yeah, I think there's a lot that's going to change. And the big thing is how many more Div 1 schools are going to add hockey programs in the next 5 to 10 years. And that will be what determines how the landscape changes for junior hockey in Canada.
All right. Kevin K wants to see big bands marching in college hockey. Did you watch, Carm, are you a football guy at all?
Not really.
Okay, so me neither, but it happens to me every year. I get excited for the start of the NFL season, and I watched College Game Day this past weekend, and I watched college football this past weekend. I get excited for the start of the NFL season. Like, I will watch Red Zone, I'll watch Monday Night Football, watch Thursday Night Football, because my wife's really big into football as well. That's my first time saying my wife on the show. I'm very, very happy to do that. But she's a Colts fan, so we typically watch other teams because the Colts aren't very good. That being said, and she's the exact same way. We both lose interest around, like, I don't know, week 5, week 6. We still keep an eye on, like, our fantasy teams. Like, we got a family fantasy football league that I pay attention to, but, like, I don't know players in this fantasy draft, like, past, like, the 3rd round. And even some guys in the 1st and 2nd round, I didn't know their names. So I get excited for the start of the NFL season. I'll watch it. I enjoy it. And then, like, week 5, week 6, I start to really, my interest diminishes, and then I don't miss a playoff game. Always watch playoff football. It's so good. But anyways, that's how I am with football. Jacob, you're a football guy.
Big football guy. Love me some football.
It is interesting. Like, first week of when we usually do the drive up to training camp, it's usually me and Trance either on the way there or the way back. And he's a huge football guy. So normally while he's driving, I'll be in the passenger seat checking certain scores for him on my phone, and just like telling him about certain guys' yardages or whatever for certain fantasy players he has. And around that time, I convince myself, like, I get into it a little bit. Oh, this will be the year I get into football. And it never actually happens because I end up so busy with the hockey season.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing, right? Like, it's like we have a sport to pay attention to, and we have to pay attention to it more than most people do. So,
what I will say though is, for us, the benefit is we get a good chunk of games at 10 a.m. on Sundays for us in the Pacific time zone.
Oh yeah, that's
you don't really
awesome.
have to worry about hockey, right? It's not too early. You're not waking up at 7 a.m. You can get through that whole slate of games, and I'll watch individual games, but I love Red Zone on Sundays just so I can stay up to date with the league without, again, having to watch a bunch of games later because we have hockey to cover. So, and college football, that's a whole nother thing. I love college football, but it's a lot to keep up with, when we're covering hockey for a living and then also trying to watch football and playoff baseball. It's September, October is a busy, busy sports time.
I love this time of year.
If anything, I watched the David Beckham documentary on Netflix, and I wanted to get into the Premier League. And then I just realized, this is going to be too much for me to keep on top of. I'm a one sport guy. And then when the NBA playoffs come around, I'll start tuning into the NBA. But for me, NHL, like, keeping on top of 32 teams alone is a lot of work. So I've got enough hockey on my plate to satisfy any and all overall sporting thirst I might have.
All right, we're getting some Canucks questions, so we'll save them for tomorrow. Folks, we're back. Like I said, we're back. We're going to do shows. We're back to 5 days a week, 4 days this week because it's Labor Day. We are back. We are so damn back. I am so excited. Harm's excited. Jacob's excited. Yeah, it's going to be a good one. This was a really long show.
It was. And I will say, for schedule wise, so Canucks training camp is in a couple weeks. I kept thinking it was next week for some reason. In the back of my mind, it's not. So yeah, we're back to 5 days here. When we get to training camp, we're going to have to take that first day off because we'll all Wednesday. We'll all be driving up to Penticton, but then we'll give you like tons of coverage from camp, shows every day into the Sunday or into the Saturday while we're there. And yeah, if you guys want, like, let us know what other content you want to see from training camp. We got a few other ideas.
Some good ideas, Jacob.
I texted Quads about an idea that I had. So yeah, let us know what you want to see from training camp, as we really are just a week and a half away from getting prepared for training camp. It's pretty crazy.
No Family Feud this week. Yes, Little Boston, regular listeners.
Yeah, we're gonna save it.
First Family Feud is happening on a patio in Penticton.
Yeah, so I'll put the survey out next week sometime, and then we'll play when we get into training camp. Yeah, patio in Penticton. J-Pat will be there. Like, we'll have fun with it in person, but we'll save it for then.
Kevin K said, my ex made me pick between hockey, football, baseball, and basketball 20 years ago. Stuck with hockey. Your ex doesn't sound... Sounds pretty toxic. What do you mean made you pick? What are you talking about? And now you said X, also 20 years ago. Pick up football. We should. We'll have Wyatt on the show. Wyatt will do football knowledge with us. I remember when I called them the Buffalo Bulls. Yeah,
which you claimed you did on purpose, but I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
You did.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. I forgot it was on purpose. All right, let's go. Let's wrap it up, and then we'll get to our Bet365 bet of the day, and we will get out of here. We'll be back tomorrow. What do you want to do tomorrow, Harm? Like, I have a few ideas. Like, we're in prediction mode. I think we should wait to do the season predictions episode.
Yeah, no, let's wait. Okay. It's let's wait too early.
Yeah, because like I said, we don't know. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. I think we're going to have some skates to talk about tomorrow potentially. So we'll see what happens there. Let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day, brought to you by Bet365. All right. Clayton Kershaw is on the bump for the LA Dodgers tonight. They are taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates are not very good at baseball, so we are taking Clayton Kershaw over 4.5 strikeouts at plus 105 odds. You can get that at Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. Real quick, just want to say, Clayton Kershaw, this whole season, it kind of seemed like, it's so nice that the Dodgers are letting him hang around, even though he's so useless and sucks and is not important at all. And he has been like their second best pitcher this year at age 48 or whatever he is. It is unbelievable to watch.
I don't think he's 40 yet. Just saying. No, I think he's 39, but yeah.
39. But he's old. He's old, and you know, Jacob, you pay attention to baseball discourse. Everyone's like, oh, what a nice gesture by the Dodgers, bringing back Clayton Kershaw and letting this useless old hag hang around the team. What a great organization. And he goes out and he's their second best pitcher.
He's going to start playoff games for them.
Yes.
Games plural.
Yeah. And he's been great this year. Shout out Clayton Kershaw. Harm, any Clayton Kershaw takes?
Well, it just makes me feel old because I remember when Kershaw was it was the best pitcher in baseball.
When you paid attention to baseball 13 years ago.
So I'm like, oh, geez, people are calling him washed now. This is a little bit sad, but glad to hear he still got it in him. That's good to know. It is funny though. Speaking of baseball, I go to the gym nearly every day, and they always have. I go during the daytime, so whether it's live game, usually it's like Blue Jays and 30 that is rerunning. Yeah. Because that's always on. I've somehow unintentionally been able to keep up a little bit with the Blue Jays. So like it surprises me to know that they have, like, I'm shocked that I know that their bullpen has one of the worst ERAs since like the All-Star game. And I'm like, I should not be knowing this.
You're absolutely correct, Harm. It's been a disaster class for the Blue Jays.
Harm's gonna come on the show tomorrow and be like, guys, Brendan Little is not a setup man. Stop putting him in high leverage situations.
Like, I know that name now, and it's like, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Oh, that's great. That made my day. All right, we went really long today. We'll wrap it up. We'll talk baseball tomorrow, Harm. Don't worry. I know you're itching to talk about your Jays. So we'll close it out. For my co-host Harm Dial and our technical producer Jacob Lazar, thanks for watching episode 1 of a new season of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.